Tour, Thierry Claverola kisses his wife in his hometown of Vizille and promises her the victory at Morzine. 6 hours later, he was true to his word. Tales like this make the Tour de France. Hello again and welcome to Morzine. Well, the rain has gone away, but the clouds are still patrolling the Alps, and by the end of this day, they will have gone as well. Yesterday, Miguel Indurain rode sensibly. He watched just the two men who could damage his lead in this race. He rode very close to Gianni Bugno and Claudio Chiappucci. This is the overall situation this morning. Miguel Indurain leading by the same gap, 3 minutes 9 seconds ahead of Bugno and 4 minutes 48 seconds ahead of Claudio Chiappucci. In fourth place is Charlie Motte, and in fifth, Luc Leblanc. Of the other top 10, Laurent Fignon is still there in sixth place, Andy Hampsten is seventh, Greg LeMond now down to eighth, Gerard Rouet, and this is a surprise, is ninth, and Pedro Delgado is 10th. Well, yesterday in the Tour de France, Greg LeMond was at one stage last on the road and reportedly in tears. Pride got the better of him, and as they started the climb of the Col de la Jouplan near the end, Greg LeMond passed as many riders as possible, but he still finished more than 7 minutes behind Miguel Indurain. The other two competitions in this year's Tour de France are also reaching their climax, and here's Paul Sherwin now to bring us up to date in those.
The Green Points jersey, awarded to the most consistent daily finisher, is being led by the small Russian Jamaluddin Abdjazaparov. He has led this competition since day 3. His nearest challenger from here to Paris will be Laurent Jalabert, the young Frenchman on the Toshiba squad. However, with a 61-point deficit, Abdjazaparov looks set to be the first Soviet in the Tour's history to win the green jersey. The polka dot King of the Mountains jersey, which denotes the best climber of the race, is being worn by Claudio Chiappucci, who appeared to have the competition conquered until yesterday's stage to Morzine. During his 100-kilometre breakaway, Thierry Claverola crossed all the mountains bar one in first place, amassing 115 points on the day and boosting him into second place, just 13 points behind the Italian. The fight for this title will continue today and may not be decided until the final small hills of the Chevreuse Valley on the last day to Paris.
And on the 177 kilometres stage today to Aix-les-Bains, there are 5 climbs, just the big one at the end, the second category climb of the Revard, which is the last big mountain of this year's Tour de France, and then it's all downhill into Aix-les-Bains on the side of the beautiful lake. And this morning, the yellow jersey safely on the shoulders of Miguel Indurain, but as soon as the riders rolled out of town, they were heading up the first climb of the day. It's a 4-kilometre climb, the Côte des Jettes, and the battle between Claudio Chiappucci and Thierry Claverola began in earnest, with Chiappucci winning ahead of Claverola over the first climb. But then there was an attack by Melchior Mauri, the winner of the Tour of Spain this year, and he stayed away for 114 kilometres. He went over the top of the Côte de Levée after 50 kilometres, leading the main field, led up by Chiappucci by 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Claverola only going over the top, 2 men behind Chiappucci here. On the Col de Saint-Jean-de-Ciste, after 64 kilometres, Mauri's lead was 8 minutes and 5 seconds. And again, it was Chiappucci pipping Claverola in the sprint for the rest of the points. On the Côte de l'Echaux, 125 kilometres, it was all change. In fact, Mauri had had a puncture, but it wouldn't have made any difference. He was being caught anyway. And on the Côte de l'Echaux, Johan Bruneel and Guido Winterberg were just 9 seconds ahead of the field, again being led by Chiappucci. We're now with the action on the last second category climb of the Tour de France, the Côte de Revard. And there is a small breakaway on, in fact, just out of sight of our camera here, and that is Pascal Richard and Dmitry Konychev. They're approximately 40 seconds ahead of an interesting group, Greg LeMond is going clear. We're looking down on Greg LeMond at the moment. He's trying to force the pace. But I think, Paul, this breakaway may have a problem succeeding now, because just as I speak, Gerard Rouet has joined in the attack.
Well, these two riders are still quite dangerous. They're 9th and 10th overall at the moment, so I don't think they want to let them get too far clear. LeMond here has been caught again straight away by the reaction from Stephen Rooks. It's amazing that the riders have let LeMond go, but it also confirms that LeMond is a real champion. He doesn't want to give up quickly, he doesn't want to give up easily, and he's going to fight all the way to the end.
I'll quickly run through the names for you here. It's Greg LeMond in the group, but the group was pulled away from the main field about 3 kilometres ago under the impetus of the champion of Holland, Stephen Rooks, and the group contains Espinosa. There's the latest time check. They're saying 55 seconds. Well, that's based on the two leaders, and in fact they're only 23 seconds ahead, that group including LeMond on the yellow jersey, and there he is, Miguel Indurain, as shadowed as ever by Claudio Chiappucci, and just behind Chiappucci there I could see Laurent Fignon. But for a moment they're keeping tempo. This is Pedro Delgado, number 31. Number 38 is Jesus Rodriguez. So the teammates of Benesto keeping the tempo nice. They'll be a little bit concerned about the proximity of Gerard Rouet. He's 9th overall in the race, but after all he's almost 17 minutes down, so they won't put the hearts too much into the chase.
Well, no major panic for the moment, because those riders are almost 15 minutes behind on the overall classification. They won't want to blow themselves up completely. They'll keep a nice little tempo and try and catch them before the summit.
This is Stephen Rooks. The 8th and 9th men overall are in this group, and now I will give you the composition. It's LeMond, Espinosa, Enrico Zanina from the Carrera team, Inaki Gaston, Vladimir Pulnikov, Eduardo Chozas, Henri Abadie, Stephen Rooks, Roberto Conti, Gerard Rouet, and the last man to latch on with Rouet before the break went was Pascal Simon. That's the composition of this group, but we're on the lower slopes of the Revard. It's a nasty little climb, in fact. It goes up in a couple of lumps. It's almost 10 miles to the summit from when the riders start climbing. That's 16 kilometres. And it looks to me, Paul, as though Rooks is now looking to make amends. What for him has been a very poor tour.
Well, he expected to show in the mountains. He didn't show at all in the Pyrenees. He showed a little bit of flurry on the stage to Alpe d'Huez and then disappeared again. So he's obviously after a stage victory for his Buckler team, who haven't really been as successful as they normally are here.
And just look at the face here of Miguel Indurain. He doesn't give much away, does he? But he now really has become a tower of strength on this Tour de France. Everybody feels they can no longer attack him. He watches everything. Claudio Chiappucci rides behind him on the left. I think that's Alvaro Mejia just slipping through our picture. There's Charlie Motti on the far side. A great tour for him. 2 stage wins in the Tour de France this year, and destined now to finish at least 4th overall. He's a good time trialist. He might even snatch a place on the podium in Paris yet. And there he is, Charlie Motti of France, the RMO team, having won 4 stages this year. Now, thank you for all your phone calls. The phone has never stopped ringing, and keep on pouring in the questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Many of you have asked about how the team time is calculated in the Tour de France. Well, each team in the Tour de France has 9 men, but they only take the individual times of the first 3 members of each team to finish. They add them together, and that becomes the team time for the day. Now, the overall leaders in the race at the moment is Benesto, 259 hours, 57 minutes, and 46 seconds. And they lead the Castorama team by some 17 minutes, with the RMO team in 3rd place, and Greg LeMond's Z team there in 4th. But the important thing to remember is that the individual time is added together of only the first 3 riders each day. Now, so many of you have asked about details on the handlebars, spokes, special wheels, the pedals, that we've decided we will do our best to point these out to you during the time trial on Saturday, rather than give you all the information today. And how do the teams qualify for the Tour de France? Well, the first 16 teams are on merit, based on their positions in the World Cup standings, and they take the best 5 riders in the World Cup rankings, add their points together, and that in turn produces the top 16 teams in the world. They are automatically invited to ride in the Tour de France. There are then 6 places left. The organisation reserves the right to have 6 wildcard teams, but they don't name those teams until the end of the Tour of Italy, which is just about 4 weeks before the start of the Tour de France. And that's just in case somebody, for example, like Greg LeMond, didn't qualify automatically, then the organisation would have the chance to make sure he was in the Tour de France. And you might also be surprised to hear that, in fact, the teams pay to enter the Tour de France, even though they are invited to ride. And the going price is around £35,000 per team. So back to the race. We're on the Col Le Revard, Paul, and the peloton obviously here not showing too much interest in the break.
Well, Banesto team not panicking at all. They're just keeping a tempo going to make sure that the lead doesn't get too disastrous for them. And they're even letting one or two other riders get clear. They're not worried at all about the stage victory today. All they can think about is making sure that the leaders or the contenders won't attack Miguel Indurain.
And the whole Banesto team here, these are the boys in the blue tops to the white jerseys, are all guarding Miguel Indurain there, making sure that he doesn't fall to grief. They're riding actually all around him, you may notice, and this would would eliminate the possibility of an accidental shunt from another rider, perhaps knocking Indurain off. And so not only are they pacing him today, but they're also making sure nothing befalls him from any other source of problems either. This is the leading group, the first chance we've got to see them. Pascal Richard, he takes them now up towards the summit. Still a little way to go on the Revard. And Dmitry Konishev, he really is a superb rider, Konishev. He was the first Soviet man to win a stage of the Tour de France last year in Pau. This year, in fact, his race has been ruined somewhat by a broken collarbone in the Tour of Spain. So the pace being set at the moment, some 40 seconds behind the two leaders, that group in between, but we're still a little way to go to the top of the Revard. After that, it's downhill to Aix-les-Bains, so we'll take a break.
Welcome back, not to the race itself, mind you, but to the Salle de Presse, which is the temporary centre of attention here today, because the PDM team has been holding a press conference to announce the results of tests on the mystery illness that forced all of its riders out of the race last week. If you remember, 5 team members dropped out of the race on stage 10 to Quimper, and the remaining 4, including Eric Breukink and Sean Kelly, pulled out the following day. Rumours were rife about the reasons at the time, but the initial findings just announced by team manager Manfred Kricker are that the source was a bacterial infection, almost certainly salmonella, which the riders picked up from the food in their bags out on the road, rather than anything they ate at the team hotel. And Mr. Kricker was also at great pains to rule out any misbehaviour by the team.
We saw in many press releases, etc., the possibility of drugs. Our first job is to inform you of the real facts, and that's what we did now. So we want to express exactly that we reject any relation with drugs. And I think we can prove that with the reports of the doctors.
In fact, PDM's lawyers are now examining the various press reports that followed the team's withdrawal to see if they have any grounds for legal action against journalists who wrote stories about the possible use of drugs. Thankfully for the sport and for PDM, that's not the case. And the other piece of good news is that all the riders concerned are now fully recovered. Back to today's racing and Phil.
We're now back with the climb of Le Revard, and we're heading up towards the summit of the climb. The two leaders still out in front are Dmitry Konishev and Pascal Richard. This is the group of 7 who are closing in on them quite quickly now, but I don't think they'll get across in time for the banner, and this still contains Gerard Rouet, Paul and Greg LeMond.
Well, this is an exceptional move by LeMond. I don't think it's going to make any difference to the overall classification, which is why there's no panic with the Banestos, but LeMond will definitely try and go down this descent as quickly as possible to try and catch those 2 leaders and maybe try and go for the stage victory, which was his in 1989 here in Aix-les-Bains.
And the group we're looking at now, just coming up behind, Inaki Gaston, and this is Enrico Zaina from Italy. They've been tailed off. The big group split up by the efforts of Stephen Rux and Greg LeMond, leaving just 7 of them in that leading group. Francisco Espinosa, Vladimir Pulnikov, Greg LeMond, Gerard Rouet, Roberto Conti, Stephen Rux and Eduardo Chozas. Now the descent right down to the finishing line in Aix-les-Bains is extremely fast. The organisation have already asked for all of the cars to give the riders plenty of room today, and it looks as though Greg LeMond, he may have lost his Tour de France, but he will not give up not being in our picture, will he? There is the lake, which is on the side of Aix-les-Bains, where we're heading to now. And just look at that. It's almost as if you could fall off the edge of this, Paul.
Well, this is a very steep descent from the top of the Rivard down into Aix-les-Bains. At the moment, not too technical, but as you get near the bottom, there are some very interesting corners, which is why, at the moment, Greg LeMond is the rider making the tempo at the front, because he wants, I think, to try and slip away from this group if he can.
Oh, there's a crash here. That's Conti who's gone down. He overcooked it on the bend. Oh, and dear me, he's taken the side out of his shorts, but it looks as though he may be okay. Well, he's certainly okay. It's a question of whether he'll come back to this break, but he doesn't have much time. But that was a mistake on the very, very tight corner, Paul.
Well, these corners are very difficult. On top of that, there are a few bumps around the corners, and they probably just bumped the front wheel a little bit. The back wheel slipped as we watch it in an action replay here. He goes into the corner. He's trying to change his line. Then all of a sudden, he would touch his brake. It's the front wheel that went there. He's probably lost it on a bump, and the rider behind him, Pulnikov, just manages to brake and get around him. It doesn't come down. In fact, he's got a front wheel puncture there. That was the problem.
Well, here we are back with the two leaders now, and it looks as though Dmitry Konishev is the more skillful on the descent. Pascal Richard had a couple of good days in the Tour de France in the mountains. Chases right back up to Konishev and goes over the top. Still willing to work with him as they make this long, long descent now down to Aix-les-Bains. And this is the chasing group, and in fact they're down to 4 men now, largely as a result of the crash there by Conti, because the 3 riders have been also dropped. Pulnikov is one of them, Espinosa is another. This group now containing just Greg LeMond, Chausat, Rux and Rouet. And all of the time it appears that Greg LeMond is anxious to get on with the chase. We've gone back to the next group here, Paul, and I think in fact that has Gert-Jan Teunissen in it.
Yeah, Teunissen is in that group. That's Teunissen just second from the back there. He won't contribute at all because he knows Konishev is in the lead, so he won't want to try and come back into the front at the moment.
And there's Gianni Bugno now as they come down the mountain, so I think it's safe to assume we are watching here a group now containing the yellow jersey. Charlie Motte is on the wheel of the boy in green, red and white. Claudio Chiappucci is there too. I think Indurain, oh there he is, just into our picture on the right. And even the green jersey of Abdou Japarov here today, Paul. How about that?
Well, amazing to see that he's still there, because it's been a very hard stage. The climb over the Rivard, the tempo was quite high, and quite a few riders have been left behind, but just goes to show that Abdou Japarov's getting stronger as the tour goes on.
Into the town of Aix-les-Bains for the two leaders now. Richard now leading more than he was coming down the mountain, and Konishev perhaps now deciding the race is between these two, sitting in his slipstream and waiting for the line-up to the sprint finish.
Well, it's been an incredible chase from the group of 4 behind, but I think these 2 riders may well just hold off, and they may well be disputing the sprint for the stage victory today, as we're here with the LeMond group. It's still LeMond forcing the pace at the front, trying to catch these 2 leaders, but I think they may just have enough time on the line to sprint it out together.
Tantalizingly close for Greg LeMond, but I think not close enough, and in some ways that's a shame. Greg would have loved to have won the stage today. He can no longer win the Tour de France, but quite clearly he is recovering from his problems. He said only the day before yesterday that all of his problems were now behind him physically, but of course he'd now lost too much time to win the Tour de France. There's Konishev. What a lovely bike rider he is. He came to the fore in this very area where we are now, just down the road in Chambéry, a couple of years ago, when Greg LeMond won the World Championship here in torrential rain, and Konishev took the silver medal. Now, if you were Pascal Richard, Paul, what would you do? Because he must feel that Konishev has the advantage here.
Well, Konishev has been very strong, and Bernard is doing his turn at the moment, and I think if he wants to win the sprint against Konishev, he's going to have to push him to the front in the last 500 or 600 meters and try and surprise him from the rear.
Well, 2 kilometers to go for the Soviet rider, and Pascal Richard, former champion of Switzerland, a very good winter cyclo-cross rider as well, former world champion there. And he's done what you said, Paul, he's got him in front.
Just a little bit too far to go yet. They'll have to do 1 or 2 more turns each, because here's the group behind. There's Stephen Rux going through. We've just gone onto the 2-kilometer banner, so it's coming down all the time. There shows us just putting a bit of effort in to come back in. These 2 riders have got to work equally until we get to 500 meters to go before they start thinking about disputing the sprint, because otherwise they're going to get caught.
Well, for the first time since they started the descent of the Rivard, the chase group could see the 2 leaders. They're ahead of those motorbikes up there. Gerard Rouet at the back could play the perfect team role here. If they catch the leaders, he might try and jump for the victory.
He may well do that, because he hasn't contributed at all. That's his right because he has a teammate away, but the gap coming down rapidly now. It's just 150 metres between the group here of 4 riders and the leading 2.
Well, this could be a tremendous finish here. Greg LeMond, I know, will become very, very much inspired if he can win this stage now. He will sense victory as they close in. It's a fair run down the side of the lake here, which you will see shortly. It's tucked away at the moment. But this is Koniczev, and now Pascal Richard looks over his shoulders, and I wonder if he's got the tingling feeling that'll run down from his neck to his toes when he sees the group coming up.
Well, as we go on to the last kilometre, Pascal Richard just looking back, because now is the time when he's probably going to start the cat and mouse tactics. He'll do a last little turn here, then he'll try and get Koniczev to the front. He just wanted to know roughly where those riders were behind him so he can know how much he can slow down.
800 metres to go. Now Richard has slowed down. The group behind LeMond is waiting at the back here. Behind is Gerard Rouet, but somebody slipped away, and it shows as who's gone. Showsas has gone in pursuit. LeMond has made a little bit of a mistake there, hesitating. Richard has got Koniczev now right where he wants him at the front. He's not going to panic. He keeps on checking. He knows in the sprint they won't catch him that quick. And Koniczev now wants to know where Richard is. And I would have thought that Koniczev will ride tight on those barriers, so it'll force Richard to make his move on the left and no other way. As Koniczev waits, and unfortunately you can't see the shadows anymore because the sun has gone in behind a big cloud. It's looking even like rain here now. Koniczev waiting to see, and I would think as soon as Richard jumps, so too will Koniczev. But I would also think you can see the chasers. There they are.
Well, the chasers are just behind, but it's too close to go now. Koniczev leading the sprint out with Richard right in his wheel. Richard is going to wait to the last minute to try and come by him.
So Koniczev opens up the sprint. Can he take the victory? And look at the kick now on Pascal Richard. He comes very strongly. Koniczev tries again. And on the line, he's got it. I think you know that Koniczev took that, although Richard went to put his hands in the air. And so Dmitry Koniczev gets the stage, and Pascal Richard Showsas takes third place, 11 seconds down. And the sprint from Greg LeMond, fourth today for Greg LeMond. And I think it was Rux in the 5th place and Rouet in 6th. And here comes Miguel Indurain. You can just see his yellow jersey in the centre of the pack, keeping well out of trouble. The clock is going to tell us around about 1 minute 50 on the line. It won't make any difference at all to his lead today. He's just had what will be for him a perfect day in the saddle, while our old friend Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, he makes sprinting look so easy while they struggle. He just comes over and heads the field home.
From injury in the Tour of Spain to a stage win in the Tour de France today for Dmitry Koniczev. In 2nd place, Pascal Richard. 3rd, Eduardo Showsas. 4th, Greg LeMond. He won here 2 years ago. And 5th was Stephen Rux. The yellow jersey tonight stays firmly on the shoulders of Miguel Indurain. The overall situation now unchanged. Miguel Indurain still 3 minutes 9 seconds ahead of Bunyo. Kier Pucci is 3rd. Charlie Motte, Luc Leblanc, and in 8th place, as he was this morning, but a little nearer the lead, although it's all too late now for Greg LeMond. And today, 10 days after the PDM team pulled out of the Tour de France, we now know why. It was salmonella poisoning. A fairly routine day as we came away from the Alps today, but what a great battle between Thierry Claverola and the leader in the King of the Mountains, Claudio Chiappucci. Chiappucci getting the better of Claverola on every climb. Surely now he will be the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France on Sunday in Paris. Well, all of the results today on page 465 on Fortel. Tomorrow we go to Macon, the next day the time trial, then we're in Paris. But for the moment, from Aix-les-Bains, from Paul, Gary and me, it's goodbye.